Right now, North America is hosting the biggest World Cup in history. 48 teams, 104 matches, 3 countries, and 16 host cities. For 1 month, the planet is pointed at football. But here is the weird part. The main host is the United States, not Brazil, not Argentina, not England. The United States. A country that dominates almost every sport, but has never been the classic center of world football. And yet, America still wanted the World Cup. Canada wanted in. Mexico wanted in. Governments still fight for this event. Cities still want a piece of it, and brands still line up around it. But the Olympics, the most prestigious sports event on Earth, has started to produce the opposite reaction. Cities have backed away. Voters have said no. Politicians have looked at the bill and decided the glory might not be worth it. For the 2024 Summer Olympics, 5 cities entered the race. By the end, only Paris and Los Angeles were left. So here is the mystery. Why does the World Cup still feel like a prize, while the Olympics increasingly feels like a bill? By the end of this video, you will see the hidden line in the host spreadsheet, the line that turns one event into a once-in-a-generation opportunity, and the other into a debt problem with fireworks. The first clue is simple. These 2 events are not equally easy to buy. When a country hosts the World Cup, it is buying one global obsession: football. One sport, one trophy, one bracket, one final, and one question everyone understands. Who wins? For a host, the product can be sold in one sentence. For 1 month, the world comes here to watch football. Football also has a special advantage. You do not have to be an expert to enter the story. You can pick a country, understand the stakes, and follow the path to one final. That is why a World Cup match can turn a bar, a restaurant, a fan zone, an airport, or a group chat into part of the same global conversation. Even people who do not watch club football can suddenly care. The Olympic promise is bigger. For 2 weeks, one city becomes the capital of global sport. That is more prestigious. But that prestige is also the trap. Because the Olympics is dozens of sports, hundreds of events, many medals, many rules, and many audiences. It needs ceremonies, athlete villages, media centers, specialized venues, security plans, transport plans, and a whole city operating system built for a 2-week peak. The World Cup asks a host to stage one global obsession. The Olympics asks a city to stage the entire universe of sport. That difference sounds simple, but it changes everything. Once the product is more complicated, the spreadsheet gets more dangerous. Here's the host spreadsheet in plain English. The real question is not, does the event make money? The real question is, how much of the money stays with the host? Because the host spreadsheet has only 3 lines, money comes in, money leaks out, money stays behind as bills. First, money comes in. Fans book hotels, restaurants fill up, airports get busier, fan zones sell food and drinks, brands activate around the event, and the host gets tourism, tax receipts, business activity, and global visibility. This is where the World Cup has its first money advantage. The incoming activity is concentrated around one thing: football. Fans know why they are there. Cities know what they are hosting. Sponsors know what story they are buying. In 2026, the pressure is also spread across 3 countries and 16 host cities. The World Cup can distribute the crowds, hotel demand, airport pressure, stadium days, and fan zones across a wider system. The Olympics is the opposite. It may attract enormous activity, but it asks one city to absorb everything at once: every sport, every delegation, every media operation, every ceremony, every security concern, and every transport surge. That is the first split. The World Cup spreads pressure. The Olympics concentrates pressure. Then comes the second line. Money leaks out. The host may provide the stadium, roads, police, airports, volunteers, crowds, and the city itself. But the cleanest global money often does not belong to the host. Media rights, global sponsorships, licensing, official commercial space, and parts of ticketing and hospitality are controlled by the event owner and the official commercial system. So the host is not simply making money from the event. The host is trying to make money around the event. You can see it in something as small as a logo. Inside the event bubble, local commercial space can disappear. Venue names get cleaned up, non-official sponsors get covered, and official partners control the most valuable advertising air. The host can provide the stage, but it does not automatically own the spotlight. That is true in both systems, but it becomes much more painful when the host's bill is bigger, which brings us to line 3. Money stays behind as bills. The World Cup bills are real. Stadium upgrades, match day security, fan zones, police overtime, transport pressure, public services, and tourism management. None of this is cheap. But the bills are focused around football crowds and mass events. The Olympic bill spreads everywhere. Multiple sport venues, athlete villages, media centers, ceremonies, citywide security, specialized facilities, transport upgrades, post-event conversion, and long-term maintenance. So the comparison is not World Cup cheap, Olympics expensive. The better comparison is World Cup focused, Olympics sprawling. And focused is easier to make work. Look at Germany 2006. Germany already had football culture, transport, hotels, stadium demand, and cities that could absorb visitors. When the World Cup arrived, the attention landed on a country built to catch it. Researchers identified roughly 700,000 additional overnight stays, about $900 million in net national tourism income, and one estimate put additional visitor consumption stimulus around 2.8 billion euros. That does not mean Germany found some magical final profit number. It means the World Cup's attention had a clear path into the local economy. Now compare that with London 2012. London is not a failure case. It is one of the better modern Olympic cases. The games were widely praised, the ceremonies worked, the city delivered, and 11 million Olympic and Paralympic tickets were sold. But the public funding package was £9.3 billion, while LOCOG's revenue and cost base was about £2.4 billion. That is not a perfect apples-to-apples profit calculation, but it shows the scale of the problem. The event's operating machine was roughly a quarter of the public funding mountain. So even in a good Olympic case, the host has to explain the rest through legacy, regeneration, prestige, tourism, and long-term city value. Those things can be real, but they are harder to prove, harder to explain, and much harder to defend when costs rise. That is the difference. The World Cup's money story is closer to attention becoming local spending. The Olympics' money story is prestige trying to justify a city-sized bill. And the bill does not end when the event ends. After the cameras leave, the host still has to live with what it built. The World Cup can leave behind expensive stadium problems. If there is no local club, no event market, no concert demand, and no reason for people to keep using it, the stadium can become a burden. But the World Cup's afterlife problem is narrower. It is concentrated around football, mass events, tourism infrastructure, transport, hotels, airports, and national visibility. The question is focused. Can this country keep using football and mass event infrastructure after the month ends? Hard question. But still one question. The Olympics asks a harder version. It is not just, can we use the stadium again? It is, can we find future demand for an entire portfolio of specialized assets? Aquatic centers, velodromes, rowing venues, athlete villages, media centers, ceremony sites, sport-specific facilities, and systems built for a 2-week global peak. Some Olympic cities reuse these well. Some use temporary venues well. Some turn villages into housing. But the host has to solve many different afterlife problems at the same time. That is why LA 28 matters. Los Angeles 2028 keeps emphasizing existing venues and no new permanent venues. More than 40 venues, more than 800 events, more than 3,000 hours of live action, and a plan designed around not building permanent new Olympic venues. That is not just a planning detail. That is the Olympics trying to escape its own afterlife problem. It is trying to become more World Cup-like. Use what already exists, avoid permanent specialized builds, and reduce the burden after the flame goes out. To be fair, there are moments when the Olympic model makes sense. Beijing 2008 made sense in a way many modern bids do not. It was not just a sports event. It was a national reveal, an infrastructure push, and a global statement. China was showing the world a new version of itself. In that kind of historical moment, prestige can be worth an enormous price, but that proves the point. The Olympics works best when a country truly needs a prestige reveal. Most modern cities do not need to buy global recognition at that price. And the World Cup has one more advantage that is even bigger than stadiums or budgets. It is better designed for attention. The World Cup does not just attract attention, it compresses attention. One sport, one bracket, one trophy, one final, one champion, one global argument. Who is the best football country in the world? That question travels instantly. You do not need a rule book. You do not need to follow 20 sports. You pick a country and enter the story. That is why the World Cup is so valuable to brands. It gives advertisers one clean global conversation. In 2026, that conversation is even more commercially powerful. The tournament is across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. It includes the world's largest advertising market. It has 104 matches, more inventory, more host cities, more fan zones, more social moments, and more ways for brands to attach themselves to the month when the world is arguing about football. WARC has forecast that the 2026 World Cup will add about $10.5 billion to the global ad market. That is not the host city's revenue, but it shows the size of the attention machine that hosts are trying to stand next to. The Olympics also has enormous attention. The problem is not size. The problem is shape. Olympic attention is spread across swimming, gymnastics, athletics, basketball, fencing, rowing, ceremonies, medal tables, national heroes, viral moments, and hundreds of simultaneous events. That is beautiful for sport, but it is harder as one commercial story. The World Cup sells one global story that sponsors can buy into. The Olympics sells 1,000 prestigious stories that one city has to stage. Olympic attention often becomes a medal table story. That is powerful for national pride, but it fragments the audience. Viewers are not all watching the same story. They are watching their country's version of the games. The World Cup narrows the world into one story. That is why it fits the attention economy so well. And when a government has to sell the event to voters, one clear story beats 1,000 expensive ones. This is where the political market tells you the truth. The World Cup pitch is easy. For 1 month, the world looks at us. Politicians can point to tourism, hotels, restaurants, fan zones, business activity, shared hosting, existing venues, national pride, and global exposure. Even if the numbers are debated, the story is easy to understand. The Olympic pitch is harder. Trust us with billions, and history will pay us back. That is a much harder sentence to sell, because voters can see the risks immediately. Cost overruns, construction delays, debt, displacement, underused venues, public funding, and uncertain legacy. Once voters started asking harder questions, the Olympic market changed. For the 2024 Olympics, 5 cities entered the race. By the end, only Paris and Los Angeles were left. Then, the Olympic movement had to change the message. The old model was, cities compete for the games. The newer message became, the games must fit the city. That is what sellers say when buyers start walking away. The Olympics has noticed the problem. The newer pitch is lighter, cheaper, more flexible, and more existing venue friendly. But that is the point. When the product has to be redesigned around host fear, the fear is real. So now the mystery is solved. The World Cup is not more attractive because it is cheap. It is not cheap. It is more attractive because it is a cleaner host deal. The product is simpler. The P&L is easier to understand. The pressure can be spread across countries and cities. The afterlife burden is narrower. Football is a low-friction global social product. The attention is concentrated. And the political pitch is easy to sell. The Olympics is harder because it asks one city to stage the universe of sport. The P&L is more complicated. The pressure concentrates in one place. The afterlife burden is long tail. The attention is huge but fragmented, and the return depends more on prestige, legacy, and faith. That is the real difference. The answer is not that the World Cup is cheap. It is not. The answer is not that the Olympics is worthless. It is not. The answer is that they belong to 2 different economies. The World Cup belongs to the attention economy. One sport, one trophy, 1 month, one global conversation. It turns emotion into tourism, tourism into business, and business into national visibility. The Olympics belongs to the prestige economy. It promises history, honor, ceremony, and global status. But prestige has a brutal price. You have to build for everyone, host everything, secure everything, and then live with whatever is left behind. That is why countries still chase the World Cup. They are not just buying football. They are buying a month where the entire planet looks in their direction. And that is why cities hesitate before hosting the Olympics. They are not just hosting a sports event. They are borrowing glory and paying interest on it for years. If this video made you see the World Cup or the Olympics a little differently, subscribe. This channel is about the hidden logic behind everyday things and the small ideas that make the world easier to understand.